On August 23rd in the year of 2005, Hurricane Katrina made its mark on history. There are many people who believe that the residents of areas affected by the hurricane were not properly informed ahead of time. Before Katrina struck, Homeland Security officials made the prediction that the levees, also known as dams, of New Orleans would break during the storm. The breakage of these levees caused incredible flooding. At this point, the devastation of the storm wasn't a problem. It was the fact that the White House knew prior to the storm of the high possibilities these levees would break, yet in an interview days later, President Bush said nobody could have predicted the levees' breakage. There was an estimated 100,000 residents that should have been evacuated. The perspective is that President Bush did not adequately protect his fellow Americans. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA, caused much controversy during the time of Katrina. FEMA was to give victims money so that they could get back on their feet and pay for essential items such as food, shelter, and clothing. During the recovery of the storm, it took an increasingly long time for people to actually receive their money from FEMA. But that's not all. 6 years after the disaster, FEMA is collecting debt. The agency is expecting the victims to reimburse money that is long gone. With the recession, money is already tight. How can they expect people to pay back a couple of $100s when they've already lost everything? Haven't they been through enough? The perspective is that our own federal agency for emergency relief is terrible. After the devastation of Katrina, there was a large movement to rebuild lost homes. However, many of the plans were never followed through. Victims are still suffering 5 years later. There are hardly any rebuilding agencies still running, and insurance grants have long expired. Former homeowners can't even sell the land for which their homes once stood. It's terrible that these people are still suffering 5 years later. If America is such an influential country, then why can't we help ourselves? The last perspective is that Katrina brought people together. After Katrina happened, a large volunteer group from Joplin, Mississippi went down to help. A tornado just recently hit Joplin, Mississippi. Multiple Katrina victims met with Joplin recovery officials to help them with the recovery process and give them any advice they had on what would and wouldn't work. This is something positive that came out of these two disasters. It is very nice to see these victims that have been through so much come together and help each other.